Welcome, everyone. Today we are welcome everyone. Today we are hosting our November session, and we're very excited because we have a very special guest. I'll introduce our guest in a bit. Today we are going to look at what the challenges of the indigenous youth and whether being indigenous is a deterrent. Now, we're going to discuss in the Bangladeshi perspective, but I think it's applicable for any indigenous youth or community in the world because none of the countries have recognized the rights of the indigenous communities. I'll briefly introduce myself. I'm Lamona Chanda. I'm one of the co-founders of the Global Activist Network. And yeah, I welcome you all to our November session. Today we have an indigenous activist, a change maker from Bangladesh, Manira Tripura. Please welcome to our platform, Manira. I'll say a few words about your achievements, about your background. So Manira is a dedicated indigenous youth leader and activist from the Chittagong Hill Tracts in Bangladesh. She served as General Secretary of the Hill Women's Federation of the Dhaka Metropolitan Branch from 2011 to 16, and later as President of its Central Committee from 2017 to 2019. From 2014 to 2020, she was also actively involved with the Chittagong Hill Tract Hill Students Council. Munira holds a master's degree from the Bangladesh College of Home Economics, University of Dhaka, completing in 2017. She currently serves as the General Secretary of the Bangladesh Indigenous Youth Forum and is affiliated with the Asia Indigenous Youth Platform under the Asia Indigenous Peoples Pact. She's committed to work for the rights and well-being of indigenous peoples in Bangladesh. So that's a great deal of achievements, Munira, and at least I know how difficult it is for um, um, indigenous people from Bangladesh to achieve so much, and more so when you are a woman. So we're really lucky to have you here tonight. Welcome to our platform.
Thank you, Lumana.
So let's start by finding out a little bit about yourself. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired your work, your activism?
Okay. First of all, thank you, Lumana, again. And I also would like to thank Global Activist Network for inviting me to this program. I'm truly honored to share my thoughts with you today. So I'm again introducing myself again. I'm Manira Tripura. I belong to Tripura community, and my hometown is Kagachuri, which is located in the Chittagong Hill Tracts of Bangladesh. So we all know that Bangladesh is a land of breathtaking diversity country,
Yes.
where colors, culture, and communities blend into one beautiful tapestry. Among this diversity are more than 4 million people, over 54 indigenous communities. We can see indigenous uh, from Chittagong Hill Tracts,
Mhm.
14 indigenous communities uh, proudly uphold their heritage. While across the plainland areas, more than 40 indigenous communities continue in this their national identity. So for us as indigenous peoples, our languages, our culture, and our tradition are not just parts of our own lives. They are truths in the vibrant fabric for our nation. So I want to tell we, the indigenous of Bangladesh, we are uh, make our country more beautiful. more colorful and more complete. But behind this beauty lies a story of struggle, a
Mm,
story that is both painful and inspiring. So, for centuries, our have faced injustice, exploitation, and deprivation. When we look closely, we can see that um, from the British colonial period to the Pakistan period, and even in independent Bangladesh, we see our indigenous people never stopped fighting for their identity recognition,
mm.
for their rights, for their land, for their dignity, and for their self-determination. Since my childhood, I have witnessed this struggle. I have seen the strain in their eyes, the pain in their hearts, the hope that never dies. So their courage has touched me deeply. It's inspired me to work beside them, to raise my voice with theirs, and to join hand in the fight for justice. This expression led me to become actively involved in my community work. Hereafter, I began my journey with the Hill Women's Federation you mentioned already, where I worked to promote the rights uh, and voice of indigenous women. Later, I also had the opportunity to work with Hill Student Council from 2011 to
Mm.
2022. So, Hill Student Council worked for advocating for indigenous students' rights and education and self-determination. After that, uh, since 2021, I have working with Bangladesh Indigenous Peoples Forum, it wings of Bangladesh Indigenous Peoples Forum. Sorry, uh, I'm working with Bangladesh Indigenous Youth Forum. It wings of Bangladesh Indigenous Peoples Forum, where we continue to raise awareness, empower indigenous youth, and build bridge between communities across the country. Through this experience, I have learned that change is possible, but only when we are stand together, when speak fearlessly, and never give up hope. Because our struggle is not just about land or identity. It is about justice. It is about dignity, and it is about our self-determination. So all this experience, struggle, each story, each moment of uh, courage have inspired me to dedicate my life to activism. That's, that's it.
Thank you. So, I mean, you mentioned that you have seen so much growing up. What
Yeah.
does being an indigenous or a Adivasi youth in Bangladesh mean to you? Is it a source of pride or a struggle, or is it both?
It's important questions to me. Uh, Being an indigenous youth, today I feel with deep pride, but it also brings challenges for us indigenous youth. Even so, I'm proud of my roots, our languages, our culture, our tradition, and value of respect, unity, and harmony with nature. This connect me deeply to me, my community, and to land we call its home. But life is not easy for indigenous people. Many of us still face discrimination, land grabbing, lack of recognition of
Mm.
our rights and identities. Officially, still we are not recognizing as indigenous peoples in Bangladesh. Our languages, our cultures, and we are still fighting for these kinds of struggle. Uh, Still, despite this struggle, I believe our generation carries hope and resilience. We are learning to use our voices through education, activism, and art to demand justice, equality, dignity, and self-determination. We are proud to be both indigenous peoples and Bangladeshi,
Hmm.
and we dream of a country that celebrates its full diversity, where our cultures seem not as different, but as a vital part of Bangladesh heart. So yes, being an indigenous youth in Bangladesh, today is both pride and struggle, but it is also about hope for recognition, respect, and a future where we can live with dignity without fear of losing who we are. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, do Indigenous young people get the same chances, the same opportunities in education and jobs and as others in the country? And if they don't, what barriers do you think they face the most?
Yes, in Bangladesh, indigenous young people often actually do not enjoy the same opportunities in education and job sector as the majority Bengali population.
Hmm.
Despite constitutional promises of equality, many indigenous communities, especially in the Chittagong Hill Tracts and northern region, continue to face deep rooted barriers. We see in the field education, we see indigenous students suffer from limited access to quality schools, as shortage of trained teachers, and instruction in Bangla rather than their mother tongue.
Hmm.
We see also poverty and the lack of cultural representation in the curriculum further discourage attendance and performance. On the other hand, when it comes to employment, indigenous youth are still held back by limited opportunities, especially in remote area, along with discrimination in hiring and advancement.
Hmm.
And when we add the lack of government programs and the ongoing land disputes, their economic marginalizations becomes even more uh, stark. So in Bangladesh, truly, if we want to we want to equality, it must support inclusive, multilingual education, provide fair job opportunities, and uh, enforce policies that protect and fully uplift indigenous peoples. So with our these chains, indigenous youth cannot fully take part in the nation's development. So this is the face most in Bangladesh.
You mentioned that the curriculum is taught in Bangla. So do indigenous, I mean, how important is it for indigenous communities to speak in their mother tongue and keep their culture alive? And are there any challenges that you face in that doing that?
Um, well, uh, speaking my mother tongue and keeping my culture alive is extremely important to me because
Mm.
they carry the importance of who we are as indigenous peoples.
Mm.
Our languages host our nations, our worldview, our relationship with nature, and wisdom passed down through generations. When I speak my mother tongue, I feel connected to my communities, mm, my ancestors, and my dignity. And this is my own identity. So preserving and practicing our culture is not just about tradition. It's it is about survival, dignity, and resisting the slow erasure of indigenous existence. So, however, keeping our language, our culture alive comes with many challenges. In Bangladesh, there is still no formal opportunity for indigenous students to study in their mother tongue beyond the very early stage. Even the limited initiatives that do exist are often inconsistent or properly implemented. After years of struggle and dialogue with policymakers, the government has finally begun publishing textbooks in 5 indigenous languages. But actually, this remains for us sufficient as
Mm.
there are more than 54 indigenous communities in Bangladesh, according to the Bangladesh Indigenous Peoples Forum. Even for the 5 indigenous language included, implementation is weak because of a shortage of trained teachers,
Mm.
lack of proper training, and minimal institutional support. You know. So as a result, we see our languages are becoming weaker among the younger generation who are forced to prioritize Bengali for survival, economic opportunity, and educational success. Cultural practice are also threatened by land depossession, state sponsor, demographic engineering through settler expansion into indigenous lands. We see here also migration, militarization, and overall lack of constitutionally uh, recognition. When communities lost their ancestral land or are uh, displaced, our cultural spaces, ritual ground, community gathering places, and traditional learning environment begin to despair. So, uh, despite these barriers, I believe uh, that holding on to our mother tongue and culture is essential. It is an act of resilience, a form of resistance, and a commitment to ensuring the future generation can still see themselves through the languages, dignity, and tradition of our ancestors. So this is the phase we are facing.
So you mentioned that 5 languages have been introduced. I assume that's for the primary education level. But do you feel I mean, from my experience, I've seen that, the colleges, universities are either in Bengali or in English. So do you feel that schools, universities, they truly represent indigenous knowledge, identity, and history? Or do you feel invisible when you reach that stage?
Mm. Thank you, Damana. It's so nice question. Uh, from my perspectives, in our schools and in the city actually do not represent indigenous knowledge, identity, or history. If anything, the representation does exist is extremely minimal.
Mm.
We see since Bangladesh still does not officially recognize indigenous peoples as indigenous peoples.
Yes.
So our present is international education systems treated as something secondary uh, or unnecessary. In fact, you see the former government even issue a notification just for before the International Day of the World Indigenous Peoples, restricting the use of the word indigenous in the media. This reflects how unwilling the state is to acknowledge our identity. So, in government provided textbook, as we often see this presentation in uh, our about about our indigenous people, our culture. We see one textbooks. The printed the line rice and alcohol are the main dishes of indigenous food. You
Mm.
see, uh, this is not only encouraged but uh, reinforce harmful uh, stereotypes. Our history is also frequently distorted
Mm.
or oversee flight. So, largely because mainstream writers and institution like proper understanding indigenous issues,
Mm.
worldviews, and their experience. So, this additionally, indigenous students often face cultural aggregation where mainstream Bengali culture
Mm.
dominate the academic space and leaves little room for indigenous uh, cultural expression or
Mm.
knowledge system. So this makes many indigenous students feel invisible, marginalized, and disconnected from the curriculum that is supposed to represent the national diversity. So this is the make as the indigenous people we feel invisible in our uh, academic level.
Yeah, I completely agree. I completely understand. And I've seen many, um, as a Bengali, I've seen so many subtle type of discriminations. I mention this all the time, even when on television adverts, indigenous characters are played by Bengali actors.
Yeah.
Um, and the language is mimicked in a very derogatory way. It's not, so I see things like that all the time, and I totally agree with you. So how do land issues, displacement, or lack of livelihood options affect I know these are like all issues in that region. So how do land issues, displacement, or lack of livelihood options affect the dreams and the security of the indigenous youth today?
Uh, uh, to indigenous youth, we see land issues, displacement, and the lack of livelihood opportunity deeply affected the dreams and security of indigenous youth today. For indigenous peoples, living an indigenous way of life
Mm.
depends on nature and ancestral lands. Land is not just property for us. It's the source of identity, culture, spirituality, and survival. When our ancestral lands are taken away through land grabbing, state-sponsored settlement, or militarization, it disrupts the very foundation of our lives. We see displacement force many indigenous families to leave their traditional territories,
Mm.
breaking community bonds and cultural practices. So a clear example is the you may be heard about Kaptai hydroelectric dam project. It's the uh, 1966, which displays around 1 lakh indigenous peoples, uh, submerged thousands of villages,
Mm.
and flooded approximately 54 acres of ancestral land. So more recently, we also see our government and military control tourist facilities
Mm.
have been built on indigenous lands by illegally grabbing and evicting communities from their own territories. So now in the Chittagong Hill Tracts, we really see indigenous youth staying in their village today. They are living not only for jobs, not only for business or education, but we see they are living for security reasons. The region remains as heavily military, and the military often attempts to portray indigenous self-determination movements as separatists, creating an atmosphere of fear and intimidation.
Mm.
This long history of human rights violence makes many young people feel unsafe in our homeland. So, growing up with their access to the forest, field, and surface that once shaped their worldview, create a deep sense of insecurity and uncertainty about the future. So the lack of livelihood options adds another layer of difficulty. We see many indigenous youth aspire to pursue education, meaningful employment, or roles in community leadership. But ongoing land conflicts, economic marginalization, and abs- absence of state support make these dreams harder to achieve. When families lost their lands, they also lost their primary source of income. So forcing young people into low paid, unstable or for work for their communities. So these challenges also create significant uh, physiological stresses. So we see many indigenous youth feel that no matter how hard they work, structural barriers prevent them from reaching their full potential. So dreams of a stable life, higher education, or preserving cultural heritage become harder to realize when basic safety and security at are the at risk. So in my opinion, uh, Indigenous youth continue to show remarkable resilience using education,
Mm.
activism, cultural revival as tools to protect their identity and advocate for justice. Without secure land, rights, and sustainable livelihood opportunity, the dreams and future of Indigenous youth will continue remain vulnerable. So this is the uh, dreams for as a indigenous youth from Bangladesh. Yeah,
So, I see that nationally the rights of women these days are um, they're going downhill. So when it comes to the indigenous community, for young indigenous women and also for gender diverse youth, are there extra challenges that you face within both your own community and within the wider mainstream? I don't want to call it mainstream, but the wider society.
yeah. Uh, yes, as the indigenous woman and gender diverse youth face unique and often heavier challenges would wait in their communities and in wider society, we already mentioned. So traditional gender roles can limit our young women access to education, leadership, and decision making spaces. Too often, young women are expected to put family responsibilities before their own uh, aspiration,
Mm.
education, or careers, you know. So in wider society, we see this, you face multiple layers of discrimination based on like ethnicity, gender, and sometimes economic status. So opportunities for education and healthcare and self uh, employment are limited, and sometimes we uh, faces harassments in public spaces,
Mm.
and also we faces harassment in workplace. It is common in our society. So as result, we see indigenous young women and gender diverse youth, often have to work much harder to pursue their dreams while navigating social expectation and systematic barriers. So supporting them means protecting their rights, within their communities, and ensuring equal opportunities in the uh, broader society. So, so I think so is there uh, mm, ways we young or indigenous young women in our wider society.
And do you feel that indigenous youth have a voice in the national youth platform or in policy making? And if not, how can we improve that?
Um, Currently, indigenous youth in Bangladesh
Mm.
often actually limited voice in national youth platform and policy making space. So while there are youth forums and government initiatives, indigenous uh, uh, preservators are frequently underrepresented. and we see this affecting their communities, such as we see land rights, education, and culture preservation, and met without their meaningful participation. So, in my opinion, to change this, it is essential to ensure the Indigenous youth are actively included in decision-making process at all levels. So this can be done by providing dedicated spaces for their participation, for supporting leadership and advocacy program,
Hmm.
and recognizing their uh, unique experience and knowledge as valuable uh, contribution to national policy discussion. So, genuine inclusion will empower indigenous youth to influence policies that affect their lives, communities, and future. So, I think this is the process to change.
And in your view, how do Indigenous youth balance their traditional identity of being Indigenous with the modern day pressures like social media, the urban life, and the global culture?
Mm, Well, uh, balancing traditional identity with modern pressure is one of the biggest challenges Indigenous youth face today. We live in a world shaped by social media and urban lifestyle and global culture. And while this open uh, new opportunities, they also create pressure to as- assimilate, to fit in, or to downplay our indigenous identity to avoid discrimination. So many indigenous youth move to towns or cities
Hmm.
for education and jobs, where mainstream Bengali culture dominates every space. So speaking our mother tongue, wearing traditional clothes. Now I'm wearing
Yeah.
also. So our practicing our customs can often invite judgment or story typing. So some you'd feel a pressure to hide parts of their identity just to be accepted. Social media adds another layer of complexity. Is expose us to global trends, lifestyles, and values that can pull us away from our roots. On the other hand, we see it has become a powerful tool for preserving and promoting indigenous culture use, and using social media to showcase traditional dances, music, and crafts, and to raise awareness of indigenous issues. So it can both challenges and strengthen our identity. At the same time, we see many indigenous youth consciously try to maintain balance. They carry their traditional values. They try to community respect for nature. They try to their languages, ritual while navigating modern education. So this, we can see also digital spaces here and global trends. So this kind of balancing act is not always easy for us, especially when our culture is often marginalized or misrepresented. So staying involved with our communities, participating in our cultural events, speaking out mother tongue at home, and learning our history. This help we stay grounded while still embracing the opportunities of the modern world. In the end, I want to tell Indigenous youth today are learning to live in two worlds, honoring our ancestors while adapting to the realities of a rapidly changing our society.
Mm.
And even thought the balance is challenged, and many turning into threatened and using modern tools to protect and celebrate indigenous identity. So this is the uh, face our indigenous youth.
What changes from the government, from community leaders or youth themselves do you think would make it easier for Indigenous youth to see their identity as a source of strength rather than a limitation?
Um, for indigenous youth, I see I see our identity as a source of strength rather than a limitation.
Mm.
Changes are needed at every level, from government, community, and also youth level. So the government must first recognize indigenous peoples uh, with dignity, ensure uh, constitutionally protection, and and stop policies that deny culture, land rights, and dignity. So the state must formally recognize us, indigenous peoples, as indigenous peoples. So ensure government must ensure our recognition and our culture and our land rights. So the proper and full and we see uh, uh, the proper and full implementation of the Chittagong Hill Tracts. CHTHSC we know about. So it's a necessary to step to ensure our peace,
Mm.
because this is the identity. This is the let's say our uh, dignity and our security.
Mm.
So for indigenous peoples, separate uh, also land commission and ministry should be established for indigenous communities in the plainlands to protect their uh, ancestors' land. So recognizing and incorporating indigenous traditional justice system and government structures and laws is also essential for building a truly inclusive and uh, pluralistic society. So, education system should inclusive and include accurate indigenous history, languages, and knowledge. So young people grow up seeing their culture reflected and respected. So community leader also need to continuously strengthening platforms for youth leadership, and also promoted cultural practices in modern and inclusive way. and support those navigating urban life or higher ed studies. We see at the same time, indigenous youth can build confidence by learning their mother tongue, engaging in cultural and political activities for gaining their own rights, and using social media to tell their own stories. So when all these factors come together, indigenous identities become a powerful source of pride and opportunity. We get opportunity. It's actually not us force young people back. So this is, I think, this is strength rather than a limitation for indigenous peoples in Bangladesh.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Manira. We have come to the end of our questions. I have one last question for you, but before I do that, I just want to say a few words about our platform. So today's session is recorded, so people who couldn't join us to listen to you will have access to the
Okay.
recording. We'll share this
Okay.
session on our YouTube channel so that if anybody wants to learn about the Indigenous youth in Bangladesh, they can watch your session. We are on most of the social media platforms. So we're on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, Twitter, Spotify, YouTube. So I encourage everyone to join and support our social media channels, spread the word. We have a nomination system, so we ask for nominations of people who are doing amazing work like yourself so that we can spotlight their work. So if you're aware of, and this is an open call to everyone who's going to watch this video,
Okay.
if anyone's aware of anyone doing impactful work that affects the sustainable development goals, we're always looking for change makers, um, amazing change makers like you. And yeah, so do follow us to support us, and we have a blog. So if anyone
Okay.
wanted to write articles on any issues or anything that affects their identity, their rights, I encourage everyone to submit articles. So please do support us. That's how we grow, and that's how we know about people doing really great work. Like you were referred by another Indigenous activist. That's how we came to know about your work, and that's how the chain of change makers grow, and that's how we know
Yeah.
about, the issues. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Before I end our session, I wanted to ask you if you have any last words for us, and if anyone wanted to reach you, how would they get in touch? How would they reach?
Uh, okay. Well, my last words are reminder of the strength and resilience of indigenous youth. As our leader, Mamandra Naren Larba, said, those who know how to die are invincible. A nation that cannot struggle to survive cannot survive in this world. So these words inspire us to keep fighting for our rights, our identity, and um, preservation of our culture, even in the face of challenges like land disposition, marginalization, and militarization. Indigenous youths must continue to become their voice, preserve our languages and traditions, and advocate for a future where our identity is a source of pride rather than a limitation. So, if we wish to, uh, I want to tell you, if you wish to reach me for further discussion, collaboration, or follow up, you can contact me uh, by social media. This is available. Uh, so I sincerely appreciate this opportunity to share my experience and uh, perspectives, and I hope it contributes to a broader understanding of the uh, struggles and strength of indigenous youth in Bangladesh. So thank you once again, Lamona, and Global Activist Network. This kind of initiative is really good. I hope this is the way to go our grassroots area who actually actively work for our people, work for grass level people. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for making time. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your wisdom with us. We look forward to hearing from you again in the future. And yeah, good luck with all the great work you're doing. So with that, I'll end today's session. I thank everyone who joined us and who's going to watch our sessions in the future. Thank you, everyone.